Welcome to Total Retail Talks, your podcast channel for retail knowledge.
Hello, and welcome to episode 60 of Total Retail Talks. I'm Joe Keenan, executive editor of Total Retail. Today I'm joined by Christopher Wu, co-founder and CEO of Paper Culture, an e-commerce company that offers modern design and sustainable products, including stationery, wedding invitations, and wall decor. We're going to be discussing how Paper Culture is growing its business with a particular focus on millennials. Thanks for joining me, Christopher.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
So my first question is, can you talk a little bit about your inspiration for starting Paper Culture? Sure.
Paper Culture started actually with the birth of my first child. I had one job when as we started planning for our first child. My wife did everything else, and my one job was to go find birth announcements. I'd been in the printing industry for a long time, and it was amazing how hard it was to find a design that really fit our modern design aesthetic, and also that were recycled. And it was being recycled was something that we'd always chosen personally. It was something that we realized it wasn't out there. And that was part of the starting point. But the other starting point was that with our daughter being born, we really had a whole new perspective on life. Joe, do you have kids?
Yeah. So I have three children.
It's an amazing transformative experience, I think, when you become a parent for the first time. I think you always want to build, as an entrepreneur, a great business, but I think for me, it changed from just being about the business to also understanding how that business was going to impact my daughter's future. And it was really that simple. I believed that a company founded on the principle of great modern design and sustainability would attract customers, and customers that appreciated beauty, both inside and out.
You mentioned that you had been in the printing business. Did you have any sort of experience with the online retail, with e-commerce, or was this something, completely new to you?
No, absolutely. I was part of the management team at Snapfish, and then we sold our business to HP. And then prior to that, I'd worked for about 4.5 years at Yahoo, and some of that on e-commerce as well.
So you mentioned, the emphasis on sustainability and sort of the eco-friendliness of Paper Culture. Can you talk about why that's such an ingrained part of the company's, overall selling point, and why it's become such an important part of the business?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I think from a macro perspective, we really look at a simple problem, and that is global warming. And global warming is real. The science is irrefutable. It's no longer a problem that we can kick down the road to future generations. And the prospect of what happens when global temperatures increase 2 degrees Celsius, it should be a lot scarier to people than it is to most. And so inherently, I believe that that's our problem. And if we're not part of the solution, we're part of the problem. And so if inspiring people with our mission is what drives us, we take that and say, yes, we can have a great mission and inspire people, but certainly we also have to build a profitable business. And I think the good news is that sustainability also helps drive our bottom line. Couple examples. So with our own Paper Culture customers, we do a survey, and people who value sustainability the most among our own customers, they spend 5 times as much as the people who are neutral on sustainability. Secondly, people who value sustainability in that same survey, they are 50% more likely to give us 10 on a net promoter scale than those who are neutral. So really, at the end of the day, doing good is good business for us.
Yeah, and we're going to get into the Paper Culture customer in a little bit, but can you talk about how that commitment to the environment is manifested in the business, the product, obviously. What are the ways that commitment to sustainability is exemplified?
So it really starts with every product that we build and the partnerships that we make. We take a dual philosophy with our products. One is, first, do no net harm. And then secondly, leave the planet better off than when we started. And so, as an example, if we're selling products like holiday cards or stationery, it starts with making those from 100% post-consumer recycled paper. By using 100% post-consumer recycled paper, we cut down no new trees to make our cards. And of course, we have a carbon footprint in producing those, so we offset that footprint with the carbon credits. But to some extent, that just leaves the planet no worse off than when we started, and that's a pretty low bar to set. So we add to that by planting a tree with every order, and have planted over 450,000 trees to date. There's a second part of that too that's more behind the scenes, which is that we make a commitment that sustainability also manifests itself in our daily routine. So whether it's the recycled office supplies, or picking an office accessible to public transport or commuter benefits, it's something that we believe that we have to live each and every day. And the sort of byproduct of that is it also helps us. We're in Silicon Valley, and one of the hardest things in Silicon Valley is attracting employees. And I was just reading, actually, a recent Pew Research survey said that 80% of millennials prefer to work for sustainable employers. And so that obviously gives us a heads up because it's just easier to attract people to work for us. And actually, this weekend, I watched The Lorax with my kids. And throughout the movie, there's this strange word that's unless. And it's inscribed on a stone, and you don't really know what it means. But I cheated. I actually wrote down this quote, so I'm going to read it. But I think it really represents why we do what we do. And it's a quote from Dr. Seuss's The Lorax, and it reads, "Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not." And that's why we do what we do.
Yeah, it's quite commendable. The kind of planting a new tree for in every instance, is that all done within the company's general campus area? Where are all those trees being planted?
No, absolutely. So we go from local to global. So locally, we will actually go out and work in our local community, urban places, as well as we go to schools and plant trees and run programs at local schools. But the good news is we are much better at e-commerce than we are actually at planting vast majorities of trees. So we actually also partner with professional arborists. And so we have partnerships with organizations like the Arbor Day Foundation, Trees for the Future, globally, as well as, and with those organizations, they have professional arborists that will plant the trees and in areas that we choose. And then they can ensure the certainty and the survival of those trees as well. So we go both local as well as global.
Yeah, great. And then, so we've alluded a little bit to the paper culture customer. So let's get into that a little bit more. Who is the typical customer? And then, kind of a second part to that is you've mentioned millennials. Why are they such an important demographic for the brand?
Sure. So our target audience has always ranged from about 20 to 45 years old, and the vast majority, probably 90%, women. When we started, which was actually 8 years ago, that was squarely a Gen X customer base. But now, 8 years later, our audience is pretty much equally split between millennials and Gen X. And before you know it, in a blink of an eye, it will be a large majority millennials. So the millennials, they're the ones at the beginning of the funnel. both as consumers and corporate purchasers. And so whether it's the newly engaged wedding invitations or new parents sending out birth announcements, or even the corporate purchaser picking out the corporate holiday cards, those are the audiences that are increasingly millennial for us. The other important part for us is that we hear more often from the millennial generation that the, quote, value that they perceive is much more than the cost functionality trade-off. They want to purchase something that's meaningful to them. A recent Nielsen survey said that 75% of millennials say that they're willing to pay more for products that come from companies committed to positive social and environmental impact. And so for us, it's both who our customers are, but it's also about what they want.
How are you not only continuing to engage with your current customers, but what about, growing the brand, and how are you attracting people to paper culture? What are some of the mediums? To me, I'm thinking that social would probably be a big, with a visual brand and visual product like wedding invitations and wall decor, that, probably social is probably in the mix. But talk a little bit about what you're doing to attract people to the paper culture brand.
Sure, absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. With the two tenets of our brand are basically tailor-made for social, right? They're visual, and it's something that people want to talk about, right? And so the visual side means that the more visual the medium, the better off we do, right? So Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, even Snapchat, to some extent, they're more visual. You can appreciate the design aspect. The counterexample of that is we don't do as well as some other brands or some other, businesses that I've been in before in non-visual brand channels like Google AdWords, which might just be text. And so literally the more visual it is, the more design side comes through. And then I think the second aspect is the more the medium lends itself to telling stories, because really, I think the sustainability side is really about driving that same motivation by which I originally started the business, which was, for me, it was personal, right? It was about my daughter and her future, right? And making those stories personal to people so that they care, right? And I think that's really any brand's goal, right? Is to find an audience, right? And a way to connect with their customers. And I think social media is just a fantastic way to tell those stories. I think traditional brand would be great for us. I don't think we have the huge traditional brand budgets, right, to do big TV ads and magazine glossies. We have dabbled in those areas, but I think as we grow over time, the greater the storytelling medium, the better it will be for us.
Makes a lot of sense. And then my final question, Christopher, is just for our audience, do you have any advice, and you can speak, obviously from your own experience, for other entrepreneurs that are looking to start their own retail businesses?
Sure. I would encourage all entrepreneurs to really think about building a business with a double bottom line. And so what does that mean? It means that you're doing it not just for the profits or the exit that you might have, but also for what you really believe in, right? And for each, that might be something different. I think in Silicon Valley especially, we realize that the stats are stacked against new businesses. I'm sure we've all heard 80% of all businesses fail. Entrepreneurship is hard. And despite the glorification of businesses and starting businesses in today's economy, I think behind all of that sexiness that people love to talk about, it's a hard slog. It's a slog of execution. And having that double motivation of building a profitable business, but also one that moves you at your core for a cause that you believe in, that makes all of those long and stressful hours even more worthwhile. And for those with families like me, I trade off time with my family, no matter how good I am at balancing the two. And for those without families, I think you dedicate yourself to your venture. So that if you realize that, hey, if 80% of the companies don't make it, sure, we're all after the 20%. But at the very least, even if your business isn't financially successful, if you throw your heart and soul into it, if you leave a legacy of your cause, your passion, and you do it with enthusiasm and commitment, you're sure to inspire others, and regardless of the business outcome. That's a pretty awesome legacy to have.
Yeah, it's a really great advice, and it really a positive way to look at your career, not just from the financial gain, but the impact you're having on your community and the the greater world. So some really great stuff there. So I want to take this opportunity to thank Christopher Wu of Paper Culture for his time. Please check out our podcast channel page, mytotalretail.com/podcasts for show notes. Total Retail Talks is available on iTunes and Stitcher, but make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. Lastly, please follow us on Twitter at mytotalretail or on Facebook at facebook.com/mytotalretail. Thanks, and I look forward to you joining us on the next episode of Total Retail Talks.